you spoke about marijuana being a gateway drug, or being perceived as a gateway drug, earlier, and I was curious: do you believe that to be true or no?
Absolutely. Like there's no way it's a gateway drug. Like if somebody goes out, and listen, I've smoked in my lifetime, right? If I smoked a joint, there was never ever a moment where I thought, huh, maybe a line of cocaine might be kind of cool right now, right? Or I feel pretty good. Maybe I need to, stick a needle in my arm and get some heroin in me, right? It's like, no, that doesn't happen. It's like, pass me a bag of chips and some soda, right? And it's like, that's what happens when you smoke weed. But when you're drunk, you lose your inhibitions, I guess, or, your ability to reason correctly.
Right.
And I think that, yeah, if there is a gateway drug, it's alcohol, because it's, people will do all kinds of crazy shit when they're drinking that they would never do. And so, if you're really drunk and someone says, hey, you want to have a line of Coke, at a party, sure, right? And your inhibitions are down, right? Your guard's down. And all of a sudden you're you do a line of Coke. It's like, that's pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll do that again, right? And that's your gateway, I feel. But marijuana's always been touted as the bad drug, and it's I think it's probably closer to being medicinal than an actual drug, right?
Yeah, but I guess you spoke, also psilocybin is another one there that people are trying to push through, to being legal as well.
Yeah.
And obviously, some of the biggest applications that people have explored is maybe like to treating PTSD and and depression and some of that stuff.
Yep.
Have you had any experiences with psilocybin that you care to share?
Yeah.
Or?
Yeah, I mean, I've played around with it. I mean, I've been around for a long time, and it's not something that I would look to all the time. But I've tried like microdosing before, and
Right.
that was really cool. Actually, it was. I didn't really feel anything other than everything seemed to be a little bit happier. Brighter, a little bit brighter, right? It was like, oh wow, this is really cool, and everything's happy, right?
Yeah.
I've eaten mushrooms before where I've had a great experience and I've had a bad experience. I mean, as a hallucinogenic, different things can you can experience a lot of different things, right? When you're in it. So I've had good and bad experiences with them, and I've listened to some podcasts and read some information on the health effects for, like you said, PTSD, depression, how the psilocybin sort of creates different neural pathways in your mind, I guess, to help you reason and think differently.
Yeah.
And you know what? If that's what it does, that's super cool. And microdose anybody that needs it. I have people in one of my businesses that they microdose during the day, during work days,
Right.
while they're working. It's I think it's pretty normal, and it helps them.
So I think my biggest thing there is I agree with you about the benefits of these drugs, but my biggest thing there is with legalization has come like overexposure, right? You've got people smoking marijuana in public parks. You've got, because it's legal. What are you going to do, right? And for me, my biggest gripe with it is not adults can do whatever they want. Who cares, right?
Yeah.
But kids are increasingly being exposed to it.
Yeah.
And, there is science here to back up the fact that people should not be smoking,
Yeah.
too soon, earlier than 21, if you like, because it
Right.
impacts the way their brains develop. I mean, as alcohol does as well, right? It
Yeah.
impacts the way their brains develop and all sorts of things about their development, right?
Mhm.
And that's always been my biggest quandary with like full legalization as it is. It's just, kids are being exposed to marijuana too early. They see
Right.
that stuff around, and I've had people kind of argue the opposite side where, oh, because you see a person do this, you should educate your kids to have a mind of their own. Yeah, but
Yeah.
I wonder what you think about like the exposure of, or do you think we're doing a disservice to the next generation by having like such open? I would say it's right now it's open use, right? It's almost
Yeah.
although recently, to be fair, the government of BC kind of repealed some of those by
Mm.
banning drug use or I think even marijuana was included there in public parks, right, and public spaces. But what do you think about raising kids in this particular world of legal marijuana?
I think that you can't make the distinction between marijuana and alcohol. Alcohol is around our children from a very young age. I think, as parents, we talk about or we manage our children when it comes to alcohol, right? You will
Right.
not drink until you're of age, right?
Do we ever
And
succeed with that? I don't think so.
no. In my case, absolutely not. Right? I think I got drunk for the first time when I was like 12 years old, right? And so yeah, so I mean, no, it doesn't work. But as parents, we're responsible to teach our kids that no, you can't do that till you're 19. There's I think no difference between that and marijuana. You got to have the same messaging. Kids have access to alcohol. They'll have access to marijuana. It's just a matter of we need to manage it properly. And do I want my kids? If I have a youngster, do I want a youngster around some dude in a park that's sitting there smoking on a big fat joint? Yeah, probably not. I don't appreciate it as someone who has had experience with marijuana. I don't appreciate people being in an open space, the center park, or even walking down the street, smoking a joint because I don't appreciate the smell. Right? I think it's for me. It's a little. I don't know. I don't know. Annoying, maybe.
Right.
But I mean, kids are going to do what kids are going to do, and whether it's alcohol or whether it's marijuana, they're going to they're going to find a source for one of the two or all of them or none of them if they want. Like, yeah, I know that marijuana is bad for developing brains, right? And I think that 21 is kind of the age, right? Well, I mean, what does alcohol do to a developing brain?
Equally,
Right?
equally terrible.
Probably, right? And alcohol attacks, different organs as well, right? It's your liver and or kidneys. It goes into it affects your brain. It affects all kinds of systems in your body, right? So,
Right.
I just think it's just a matter of managing that. I've told my kids, listen, I prefer you smoke weed than drink alcohol,
Mm.
right? And my kids are all old enough. They're all 21 and older, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
Smoke your weed. Don't drink booze. Booze is bad, right? If you want to do something, smoke some weed. That's just my opinion, right?
Right. So, assuming you were maybe a government official or something, how again? Obviously, you just spoke about not appreciating people. I don't know, smoking outside where
Yeah, yeah,
anybody can be exposed to their
yeah.
material. Personally, I would say ban smoking in public spaces. You can do that in your house or wherever in your
Sure.
private gathering or just somewhere that it does not. And and that's the problem I have with, I guess, social media in general. People feel like everything needs to be like public. They have to put everything out there. Like, oh, look at me and this big fat joint. It's like, do your thing, man. I don't need to know about it. It's like,
you know, we've in our society up until like, I don't know, 5 years ago, maybe,
yeah,
you know, it's been illegal to drink alcohol outside,
yeah,
right? You're allowed to drink alcohol in your own home, right? Um, but not outside, you know, in your yard, sure, but not outside in public. You know, I don't know. I think that's effective. Um, why wouldn't they just carry that forward for marijuana and just say, okay, no smoking in public places? Same as alcohol, right? No drinking in public places. But I think alcohol's changed a little bit, I think, over the last 5 years,
right.
where they allow it in public spaces now. So,
Which is pretty unfortunate. I'd say.
alcohol's the worst, man. Like when I finally recognized that my relationship with alcohol wasn't that healthy, and I stopped. I never realized it, but it is a bad thing. It's an absolute poison, and it, again, you know, it ruins families, lives, businesses. It's a bad thing, right?
Right.
Anyway,
Yeah. So, I mean, your opinion of this was that, okay, you don't feel like marijuana is a gateway drug per se,
no,
right? And yet, we're right now living in the midst of an opioid crisis, right? And there are underlying reasons why people choose to engage in risky and riskier drug use, right?
yeah.
And I wonder what is your assessment, first of all, of the opioid crisis, and what would be your approach to trying to tackle the opioid crisis?